We have a financial system that is run by private shareholders, managed by private institutions, and we'd like to do our best to preserve that system.
Now, that, of course, is Tim Geithner. That was from his presser that Steve Leisman talked about. That is such an important statement. A system run by private shareholders for private institutions. It is so important. And that's where I want to go with our distinguished panel. A bad bank bailout for bad banks. Here to discuss, Bill Seidman, CNBC chief commentator and former bad bank chairman. We also have former Dallas Fed President Bob McTeer, former FDIC Chairman Bill Isaac from the 1980s, knows a thing or two about bad banks, and CNBC's Rick Santelli, who knows a thing or two about most everything under the sun. My pal Steve Leisman is still here with us. Bill Seidman, you are the guru of all gurus because you ran the Resolution Trust Corporation many years ago with the S&L bailout crisis, and you proved me wrong. You actually pulled it off, and my hat's off to you. I want to ask you, as per what Geithner just said in that clip and my own particular worries, can we do this in a way that preserves a private financial system of private institutions with private common stock shareholders, Bill? Those are my two biggest worries.
Well, you can certainly do it by putting in government subsidies. If the government wants to buy these bad assets at much higher prices than the market thinks they're worth, then you can subsidize the banks that way. And, of course, the loss will go to the government. I think everything the market said today was that's what they expect.
But, Bill, hang on. Does that mean you don't think they're going to create a separate RTC-type bad bank? That's what is that what you're just saying?
No. I'm saying they will.
They will.
But they're going to pay very high prices for the assets.
For those toxic assets.
Yes, that's right.
So that's a lousy deal for taxpayers.
For you and I, yes,
for you
it's
and me.
Not good.
Along with all the other stuff we're going to have to eat from this new era of whatever this is, state-sponsored corporatism, socialism. All right. Bill Isaac, weigh in on this. A bad bank to buy toxic assets at high prices. It does not sound like the blue plate special to me.
Larry, I as usual, agree with my good friend Bill Seidman. The government, if they do this, they're going to wind up paying way too much for the assets because the banks won't sell them otherwise. And they're going to wind up selling them to private investors who won't pay nearly as much as the government has paid the banks. So taxpayers are going to take it on the chin when they buy the assets. They're going to take it on the chin when we sell the assets. And in the meantime, when those assets are in the hands of the government, they're going to deteriorate in value considerably.
So you vote no, Bill Isaac. You vote no. Now, Bill Seidman, I wasn't sure. Was yours a no vote?
Definitely a no vote.
Oh, definitely a no vote. That is very interesting. Now let's go to Bob McTeer, former head of the Dallas Federal Reserve, Texas A&M, and many other important things. What do you make of this bad bank to buy? I got 2 no votes, Mr. McTeer.
Well, the key here to remember is that Mr. Seidman had assets that came from already failed institutions. And what we're talking about here is extracting bad assets voluntarily from institutions that may need to get rid of them at some price.
And really just a handful, Bob McTeer. Just a handful
Bill
of institutions.
Isaac has a much, well, maybe quite a few institutions, but Bill Isaac has a better solution, which is to leave many of these on the books of the banks, but just not require them to have to write down regulatory capital dollar for dollar with mark-to-market accounting. That's the first step.
What about people in the marketplace, Bob McTeer? I've heard a lot of people say that if you scrap mark-to-market, everyone will see right through it. It'll be a laughing stock, and it can't be done with credibility. How do you respond to that criticism? That's not my view, but there's a lot of people who have that view.
Okay, you can leave the details of what you've got on your balance sheet. The thing that needs to be broken is the link between that, which everybody can look at, and this automatic write-off of regulatory capital.
All right. You want it. Now, this is going to be fun. You're left, my friend, Steve Leisman. You are going to vote for this bad bank. So far, I got 3 distinguished former Fed heads, FDIC heads, men of standing and esteem and wisdom who oppose this scheme. You want to fight that?
The measure of financial experience with which I'm about to disagree is a measure of my chutzpah, if not my wisdom here. Let me just offer 2 things. Is that there are things out there that I just wonder if the panel might consider before pouncing upon me. And that's the following 2. There is credit risk embedded, unrealistic credit risk, and unrealistic liquidity risk embedded in all of these assets right now. If the government were to plug its numbers, its ability to hold on to these assets for a period of time that is longer than the average market participant right now would, as well as the idea that the government doesn't have to sell these assets, it gives a different price that is, in fact, higher than the market price.
Is this your model idea?
The model idea.
No,
there are
you
2.
Know,
let me just finish the thought, Larry.
Models work. You know that.
The inputs to the models.
Have been, the inputs
to the models did not work, Lawrence. The inputs to the model were wrong. Garbage in, garbage out. The idea of modeling a different credit risk profile as well as maturity profile for the government is perfectly sound finance.
But do you hear from your sources? You
tell me where I'm wrong here. That's the only thing I throw out to all the great wisdom.
I got to get Santellian. Who's going to answer that? Bob McTeer, just 1 second. I got to get Rick Santellian. Rick,
okay.
I gather you don't like this bad bank creation either, but I want to ask you, why don't the banks, there's really only talking about a handful of big banks, for heaven's sakes. I know it may be more than a few, but really, the bulk of the toxic assets that are clogging up the financial system, for which government might buy them out, or the Fed, why can't they just sell them? The last mark was 22 cents on the dollar when Merrill Lynch did it in the 4th quarter. Why not just sell them and then figure out some accounting forbearance as per Bob McTeer and Bill Isaac? Why not just do that? Wouldn't that be simpler, Rick?